Hello chaps and welcome to my build update number 1 for the Airfix 1/72 scale Vickers Wellington B.III. This is the original 1959 tooling in a 1975 reboxing. This is my second build entry for the Bomber Command buddy build that I'm posting both on here and on Facebook. And in this build update we'll look at the building the model, getting it ready for painting. First thing, the ceremonious bathing. As you can see, it's the old black plastic. A lot of flash, a lot of stuff to be trimmed off, so preparing parts ready for assembler. And as you can see, ejector pin marks on those ailerons, they had to be cleaned off. So there's all the parts ready for the port side wing assembler. They were then glued together, the aileron can move. And then got the engine nacelles ready, clean those up, and the engine cowling. And then moved on to the starboard side wing parts, clean those up, assembled them, clamped them till they were set, the aileron can move. And then moved on to the engine nacelles. They're metal, so I can scribe those panel lines which were raised details. And again, I cleaned up some parts for the wheels, got them ready for assembler, and then scribed the panel lines on the engine cowlings. Well, I wanted to make this a little more different, so I thought let's build a bomb bay. So there you can see the port side fuselage off, the doors are cut out for the bomb bay. I have to make a bomb bay floor, so using some styrene card I cut out a bomb bay for the two end bulkheads, front and rear, and then I did a bulkhead for the cockpit to go behind the seating area there on the black floor. There's the cockpit parts ready on cockpit cocktail sticks for painting, and you can see the rear bulkhead that I built already shaped and glued onto the floor of the cockpit. I then cleaned up all the parts for the horizontal stabilizers, vertical stabilizers, elevators and rudder. Assembled those ready. After that I moved on to assembling the bomb bay. There's the floor and the two end bulkheads in place. I then cut out some strips to make for two inner wall sections. The bomb bay on the Vickers Wellington had 3 compartments. There's the separators in place to create those compartments. It's not accurate by no means. If you look at it, those separators were like a framework, so they had holes going through them. I wasn't going to do all that. I just wanted to create something a little different. Well, the bomb bay doors are cut out there. Well, the bomb bay doors on a Wellington, there's 4 sets of bomb bay doors, so I split those 2 halves down the middle. I then separated them into 6 pieces. There's 6 bomb bay doors on each wall section, and I numbered those P1 to P6, so I know which is the front, which is rear end, get them in order, and S1 to S6. I then moved on to priming. So I primed the inside of the fuselage halves and primed the wheel wells on the wings with a dark grey Steinel res primer, and I did the same for all the parts I'd prepared on cocktail sticks. And those parts were then given a RAF interior green, and that was airbrushed onto the inside of the fuselage halves and in the wheel wells. I used the Model Masters, toned down with a little bit of white and thinned with Model Masters acrylic thinner. I then assembled the nacelles onto the port side wing, and the propeller spindle has to be glued in place. Well, so that I don't have to glue it, I put in a little post there using a bit of sprue. That'll trap that spindle into the back of the cowling. It won't fall in, or it won't have to be glued, and I'll have a spinning propeller. There it is, glued in place. That's an underside view. I then glued that wing into the fuselage off on the port side. So port side's ready for assembly now. I then took a view from the outside there, and then moved on to doing this exact same procedure with the starboard side. There's the post, bit of runner cut off, glued in place. I used super glue, and that's ready now to glue the cowling on the front with the spindle in place. There it is, all ready to go. That's an underside view showing the wheel bay there, and there it is glued into the fuselage half. So those fuselage halves are ready to glue together now. But before we do, we've got to get the cockpit done. So I used the decals that I hadn't used on the Halifax, chopped those up a bit to create an instrument panel for this. There you see the instrument panel complete with 3 lots of decals in place, and I painted some red buttons on there. Got the pilots painted on cocktail sticks and painted the cockpit and assembled it. There's a close-up of the pilot and the flight engineer. I'm not going to bother detailing eyes and that, not at this scale. There's the instrument panel glued in place, pilot and flight engineer glued on their seats, and there they are glued into the portside cockpit fuselage half. Took a couple of photographs of that before we button up the 2 fuselage halves. So then I moved on to gluing on the air intake at the top of the nacelle there, and there's one on the underside as well. That's the underside one glued in place. And then moved on to the gun turrets. So I painted the inside of the gun turrets, rear and front. Painted the machine guns and the 2 gunners. Those guns are way out of scale, they look massive. But there they are glued in place with the gunners in their corresponding turrets. I then glued the triangular windows into the fuselage halves, and that's an inside view showing the gun turrets now in place at the ends. So that's now ready to button up the hatches, and there they are, the 2 halves glued together, taped until set, and that's an underside view. I then moved on to the horizontal stabilizers and vertical stabilizer. Glued those in place, a rear view showing those situated, and that's a front view showing them situated. So next I moved on to masking the canopy and the underside window, the bomber's viewing window. Glued those in place. I then masked the side windows and the rear and front gun turrets. Getting those ready for painting. And there's the underside window glued in place. There's gaps everywhere. I've got to go around and fill everything. I then clear coated everything that was painted so that I can weather those. Clear coated the bomb bay and the wheel bays and add weather into that. Next I chopped out the ends for the wingtip lights. That's the port side wingtip light. I painted it red and then sealed it in with some clear coat. And then chopped some clear sprue, glued that in place. And that's the starboard side wing tip. I then sanded those down smooth, blend it in with a wing shape. So that's the port side complete. That's the starboard side complete. So that's it for this build update number 1, guys. Next update we'll look at filling all the gaps, sanding those down, cleaning the model, priming, pre-shading and painting. So until that update, guys, build update number 2. Thanks for following this one. Thanks for any comments you leave. Much appreciated. So that's it, guys. Talio, chocks away.